Wonderful. Hi,
Hi, Helga.
everyone. Hi, Raquel. So, hi, everyone. You are here with Milka Mulians and Raquel Wong. And today's session is we are going to be talking about going beyond resilience and how that impacts, where we are right now in the world, So how do we look at going from we've been resilient now, like how do we move beyond that step? And then we're going to have a really interesting conversation with Raquel, who is a coach. We're both in Miami, and we're going to have an interesting conversation about things and strategies and things that you can do to support yourself in these coming weeks and months. Raquel, can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can hear you
Okay.
perfectly.
All right. That sounds good. Okay, wonderful. So, all right. So this is the Wellness Matters speaker series, and I am here with Raquel Wong, as I just mentioned, and we are essentially. This is part of the Wellness Matters speaker series. And our goal during the next few weeks is to provide really interesting and engaging conversations with coaches all over the country about the things that you can do for your own wellness to support yourself in the coming weeks, especially with all that is going on in the world. So we're going to start off with, Raquel, if you can introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, and how does resilience factor into how you move in the world as well as through your work as a coach.
Thank you, Milka. So, hello, everybody. I am Raquel Wong. I am an executive life coach. I believe in approaching it in a very holistic way. So, really taking into account the mind, body, and spirit, because how we think affects how we feel and therefore how we act and move in the world. So, I've been doing coaching for around 10 years, originally from Jamaica, and I've traveled and lived in many countries, and this allows me to really have a great deal of perspective on different cultures. And yeah, that's pretty much what I do.
Yes,
What can I say? I love coaching. It is a very gratifying career that I have. It's one of the most beautiful things is really to see people heal and transform and really have them elevated and uplifted and really stepping into their best self. So that's really what I love about it.
I agree. And I think for all the coaches who are part of this community, that is very much a big part of why we do what we do. To see the change, the impact that it has on individuals is something that it's beautiful and it's inspiring to see the transformation that people make as they go through their coaching journeys. Wonderful. So that being said, I think normally the way this works, as all of you know, sometimes people are live, they're able to join the conversation. If they're not, this is a recorded conversation. It's a recorded live, so it will be available to you afterwards. So it will be both on YouTube and on LinkedIn. And so you'll have an opportunity to see it much later on if you're not able to participate right now. So Raquel, right now, it is October 17, 2020. We are in the United States, and the election is only a few weeks away. There is a lot of uncertainty, a high level of stress. People are concerned or worried. Conversations that I've had, both with family members and friends, there is a general sense of uncertainty that is befalling all of us. And I think that's happening on different levels, on a national level, certainly here in the US. And I would even say on a global level, when you think about COVID-19, how it's impacted the world, there's a lot of uncertainty right now. And so from COVID-19, which we're still dealing with in the United States, and it's something that's resurging, to the protests, as well as the election, and there could be an economic downturn in the foreseeable future. We don't know. So these are all of the things that are on the backdrop of what we're dealing with right now, right? And so as we think about that, what comes to mind for me is we're going through this collective experience. What would you call that right now?
Yeah, I believe we're of course having lots of feelings, but I think one of the primary ones is collective grief, and it's collective anticipatory grief because we're so uncertain about the future. Basically, COVID has happened. We know it's temporary, but it certainly doesn't feel temporary. We're going on till, it's been so many months. Um, and it's just, and it's not that collective grief or grief, and grief is a natural part of life. It's something that we're all gonna face. But on this level, just like what you articulated earlier, we have COVID, you have the elections, the potential economic downturn, and of course, we just don't know how we're gonna come out on the other side. It's not unlike something like 9/11, where travel and the travel industry completely changed, and just how our experience of using airports completely different now. And so
Right.
it's a similar thing that's going on. So I
That's a
would
good
say,
point.
yeah.
I think you
So
just raised a good point about how when you think about something like 9/11, how it's changed the way we travel
Yes,
completely. We don't know what's on the other side of this change with COVID. We
correct.
don't know yet, but we do know that there is going to be change, and it will have a massive impact on how we live. And so, what are your thoughts on being aware of the fact that we are going through this type of change, and there's uncertainty with that as well, like what the future holds for us. What are some strategies that you think we can start to use for ourselves, our families, things that we can do to better help us as we go through this collective grief journey?
Sure. So before I get to the strategies, I think it's important to even unpack what is grief and what are the stages of it. So, because once you're aware of something, you are much better able to work with it. So it's
Yeah.
not this like unknown, this bag of feelings that you don't know what to do. So there are actually 6 stages to grief,
Hmm.
and it doesn't happen in a linear way. So it's pretty much out of order. The first one would be denial. So for example, so if we're taking COVID, the denial is, you know what, it's not going to affect me. I'll be one of the rare ones that COVID doesn't affect. Now the next stage would be anger. That's where it's like, oh my word, I am stuck at home. I have to stay at home. And I'm not able to go out and do the fun things that I usually do. And I'm sure as I'm naming all these things, everybody's resonating because we've
Right.
all
And
been there.
right, and we've seen the people, like people who are angry at wearing a mask, which we're like, okay, this is crazy. Like that should be the least of our worries, or just general anger after having been in confinement for so long. It's not natural as human beings for us to be confined to our space, and not be able to move. That's very unnatural for us. And
Oh
so,
gosh,
yeah,
yeah, so that's huge. And of course, the loss of connection. You're not able to connect with all your loved ones, especially even like say your parents or grandparents who, their health would be more compromised. So it's a big deal.
right,
And so, so then the next one would be, of course, bargaining. That's where, if I social distance for 2 weeks, then everything is okay.
right,
So of course we start going back and forth, like, okay, what can we do? If then, you know.
right, right.
And then the fourth is sadness. And then as I speak to sadness, it's, all right, it's been, what is it, like 8 months or something? When is this gonna end? Is it
Right.
another month? Is it another 2 months? So there's really sadness that, okay, I want this to be over.
Yeah.
And then the fifth is acceptance. So of course the idea of acceptance is, all right, I have this thing that is completely invisible. I don't know where I can get it, but there are certain things I can do. I can wash my hands, I can use the active antibacterial stuff, I can social distance, I can actually learn how to work well virtually. So those are
Mhm.
the things in our control. And the sixth one, which is usually when they talk about the stages of grief, it's usually 5, but they added a 6.
Right.
And I love the sixth one because the
What is
sixth one is meaning. Now, what is the meaning that we're
all of this?
taking from all of this, loss of safety, uncertainty about the future, etc.? What kind of meaning can we take that's empowering, that actually
Mhm.
allows us to move forward? So as much as COVID and everything else that's happening in the world has been very challenging, we also have been greatly supported, because we live in a time where we have technology that allows what you and I are doing right now. We're
Exactly.
talking to each other, and we're talking to, on several different media platforms.
Hmm.
So this is amazing. So at least we can just connect.
Right.
Another great, I think, thing that came from COVID, even for myself personally, is that because I've had much less distractions, and much more able to do things that I wouldn't ordinarily do, maybe paint or sing, or like creative things, have long conversations with friends, reconnect. I actually
Mhm.
yesterday I connected with a girlfriend of mine from 14 years ago. We were in
Wow.
business school. Yeah, and and it was beautiful, because
Yeah.
you just come back in. So again, there is a certain amount of support and blessings from it. And
Yeah.
it's really important, especially one of the biggest things with grief, because of course when grief is unhealthy, that's when you fall into the anxiety, and you fall into like the worry. And one of the biggest things that's important is how to balance that extreme thinking that comes from that, when you're constantly ruminating on the negative.
Yeah.
So
Right. And you said so much there, but something that just kind of stood out in my mind as I was listening to you is also how adaptive we are as humans. How we eventually adapt, and we're able to accommodate the situation as it shows up in our lives, right? And so that I think that is something that is so interesting, and that allows us to have an opportunity to, in many ways, um, we're able to switch to a new type of behavior when it's necessary. But for those where that's a lot harder, I'm hearing some feedback. I'm not sure if it's me. Do you hear it as well?
no, I don't.
Don't?
You sound perfectly fine.
Okay, perfect. Okay. As I'm thinking about people who haven't been able to adapt as well, or they've struggled significantly in the last few months, what are some of the things, we go back to the idea of the strategies that I asked initially. What are some of the things that actually might show up for them that might that might perpetuate this anxiety?
Sure. So, one strategy that I found very useful even in my practice is this idea of getting very familiar with that negative talk, with that worry, that anxiety. So again, the more aware you have of something, is the better. It doesn't like just jump on you out of the blue. You're
Right.
able to like, okay, you're back, my little saboteur, you're back. Now it's time for us to sit down and talk. So something that's very helpful so that it doesn't end up taking over all of your days is to make an appointment with it. Make an appointment with your self-talk. How about every evening, 5 p.m., I'm going to sit down and I'm going to, journal and just really listen and get to learn. Because when the saboteur comes up, or this negative talk, or this worry or anxiety, it's not unfounded.
Mm.
We actually are in a pretty uncertain place. So it's quite natural what the body is doing. So the worst thing you can do is to ignore it or think it's going to go away. So it's better that you actually take the time to just sit down. And why it's important to schedule it is so that it can be contained, so that you don't go through your day and it pops up and you just say, oh, don't worry, I have you. We're going to
Mhm.
do our speaking this evening at this time, at this location, whether it is I guess most people are working from home. So it's like at my desk or wherever you want to go, or outside in the park, etc. But having that rigor is pretty important, because what you're doing is you're making something that is unconscious worrying conscious. So you're containing it and making it conscious.
Yeah.
And another thing that's really important is that it's really, once you have certain learnings from this interaction, you can actually take constructive action. And so the engagement of it makes it less, because when you start thinking, okay, what really is the evidence for and what's the evidence against,
Against,
you're
yeah.
engaging your rational mind. And once you do that, the extreme thinking kind of goes away,
Hmm.
and you can actually formulate, okay, how do I move forward? What actually can I do? And so, yeah, that's a big one.
That's very powerful. Does it matter at what time of day you do this, when you do it?
No, you could do it in the morning, the first thing in the morning if you want. I mean,
Yeah.
it's really up to you, but it's more just having a concrete time, place, and duration. Of course, you're not going to go on for like hours. Like probably 10, 15 minutes is good.
Enough, right?
It's enough. Yeah.
So
We're not trying to, but it's just more, it's more because I mean, what is feelings and emotions? It's just really energy that wants to be released.
right.
There is something there for you to learn.
Yeah, I really
So
like that because I think, I've been journaling since I was a child. I actually have stacks of books of journals I've had from when I was actually 8 years old, which is a long time ago. And
wow.
I still have all of them. And what I've always found amazing about journaling is like it allows you to release a lot of negative energy or negative thinking or thoughts. You're when you put something to paper, you're kind of letting it go. You're not holding on to it. Now, for some other people, they may not journal, but they may like to talk to people, and it's great when they actually get a therapist that they can talk to once a week. But for those who don't do that, and who may find themselves like using friends as a way to get this release out. What are your thoughts on that? Especially now, where I feel like people don't have a lot of bandwidth for that, like people who are calling to complain or whine about one thing or another. Like, what are your thoughts around people who use other people to get that negative energy out?
So it's interesting you said that. With my close friends, we actually we at the beginning of the conversation, the person will ask, or depending on who is whining or not whining, are we having a whining conversation, or is this a growth conversation? So I
Oh
can get
my
ready. I can
God.
get ready. Do you need me to actually, be much more like, okay, well, how do you get out of it with strategies, or do you want me to just hear it? Because sometimes you just want to, I mean, yeah, you just want to just let it go. I
I
mean,
do
now
that as well, actually. It's funny because I've had times, yeah, particularly people who I'm close to, like my sisters or
yes,
close friends, I'll ask from the beginning. Like I can say this very quickly, like first few seconds of the conversation. If I can
yeah,
pick up on that person's energy, I'll stop. Like, okay, do you want is this a conversation where you just want to have somebody listen and not say anything? Do you want my feedback or opinion? What kind of
yeah.
conversation are we having? Like I actually lay the groundwork like in the first minute before we continue to minimize misunderstandings and miscommunication.
I love that. No, and that works well. And what I would say also, I think the best technique for that, especially now, because you're right, a lot of people are inundated and they're getting stuff left, right, and I mean, I have clients who they're just like, oh my gosh, I think I'm gonna turn off like the notifications because she's
Exactly.
a lawyer, and it's like it's nonstop.
Yeah.
So another I think strategy that's really important is
Mhm.
becoming your own best friend.
Yes.
Because now, guess what? We're not traveling as much. We don't have as many distractions. We can actually take the time to be very nurturing and compassionate with ourselves. So it would be, simple techniques like, or simple things like, okay, making yourself a beautiful bath. Maybe
Yeah.
you buy yourself some flowers, to put in the house. Make yourself some tea. Um, Go for a walk.
Yeah.
And of course it completely depends on, so of course for the people who are single, they'll have much more time and space to be able to do such things.
Yeah. I haven't had It's so funny for me. I feel like I've spent more time with myself this past year or these past 9 months than I think I've had as much time to spend with myself than most of my life, And so there's really been that kind of opportunity to kind of sit in silence and to, be on your own space for days at a time, maybe not even go out. And it's been very interesting for me as I'm listening to you talk about this idea of becoming your best friend. Tell us a little bit more about that. What do doing those type of things like buying yourself flowers or going for a walk, what does that do for you? Like, why is that important right now?
Oh, I think it's very important because it's you exercising compassion and love to yourself. In the same way, we treat our friends and our loved ones so much better than how we treat ourselves.
Right.
When I even like think of it, when I'm making a meal, if there's somebody, like even how I arrange a plate, I do like a work of art, and then when it's my plate, I just like
Grab a bowl.
Yes. So it's so funny, and I notice it with myself. I'm like, come on, I mean, you came in this world with yourself, and you're leaving with yourself.
With yourself.
It's a good idea. That's what's gonna be, and what the whole journey with you. It's a good idea to become very familiar and to be loving and kind to that, because that's how the way you treat yourself is the way you'll be able to treat others. I mean, that's really, and no, that's what we all need. We all need some more love and compassion, because people deal with extreme emotions like this grief, this sadness, anxiety in very different ways.
Yeah.
So the more bandwidth even you have for others, which will come from your own self-love and self-nurturing, that's very, very important.
That is so true. And so what would, if there's an additional layer to that, self-love, what are some things, any relaxation techniques that can help? Because for some people, when they hear the word self-love, they're like, oh, what does that mean exactly? What does that actually mean in real terms?
Yeah. Well, so basically, I would say self-love is anything that allows you to diminish your anxiety and your stress. It could be music. It could, even for those people with their children at home or their partners at home working together, it could be just literally walking outside for 5 minutes or something. Like very small, simple things. Anything that diminishes that, that high beta, stressed out response is an act of self-love. So it really looks like as many people as there are as many ways, whatever people's preferences are. So that is what, and then of course, just like I love what you just said with relaxation. So relaxation can, I think there's several things you can do to increase your relaxation. One of them, for example, would be a reduction of the media, not watching, all the election stuff, the COVID stuff. I mean, we're inundated with all these negative things. So really cutting down on that. Also having certain boundary strategies with others. So anything that brings you, like triggers you and it's particularly painful, like try to minimize that. Another thing is to just really get present. So in that moment that you're feeling, stressed out or, super tense, just if you even just look around the room and name, okay, what are 5 things I notice in the environment? I notice a lamp, I notice a figurine, I notice the chair. I can feel it, I can feel myself seated on the couch and being supported. I feel the pillow against my back. That takes you out of that primitive brain, that stress response. Anything you can do to be present. And then and in that moment, just having the recognition, you know what? You're okay. You have food. You probably have a roof over your head. So it's okay in this moment. You're present here. And then just even the simple act of breathing. Just, inhaling through your nose, exhaling through your mouth, and just even being conscious of the breath coming in your nose and going out gets you very, very present. And the last bit I would say is is visualization. Visualizations that create peace, that create a sense of calm, of love, of joy. Those emotions that, just make us feel really good.
Wow. As I listened to you, it just started to really calm me down. Even your voice.
I was going to ask you if you felt the change. Did you?
I did actually. I did feel the change. So I want to apologize. There's some background noise that was completely unexpected. I feel like this is the reality we're in right now. So I didn't expect that at all. Somebody's mowing the lawn outside. So what I want to do, I'm going to go on mute, and I would love, Raquel, if you could do like a quick visualization for us, because I think it really is an interesting and really cool technique for getting people into another headspace and showing like how valuable it is to sometimes being able to shift, right? If you see yourself getting triggered or you're reacting to something and you're not always sure what it is, what are the things that you can do to quickly get yourself together and in a space that allows you to kind of bring it down a few notches. So if you could do that, that would be wonderful.
Okay, absolutely. Definitely. All right. So the first thing I'm going to say with visualization is there's some people who, when you say visualization, they think it's going to be like a movie, you know, and some people aren't able to do that. So that's not really what it is. It's just whatever comes up, whether it's words, smells, just really getting into your body and your senses. And so what I would like everybody to do now is close your eyes, uncross your hands and your legs, and just get comfortable wherever you are. If you're seated, if you're lying down. And I want you to, we're going to start first with a couple of inhales and exhales. So inhale through your nose, exhale through your mouth, inhale through your nose, exhale through your mouth with a sound. Last one, inhale through your nose and exhale through your mouth. Now I want you to feel yourself really supported by whether it is your chair, your bed, your sofa. And I want you to imagine that you are in a beautiful garden. It's a garden that's filled with the most beautiful flowers. There are roses, there are tulips, there are sunflowers. All the colors of the rainbow are represented here with all these beautiful flowers. And as you walk around and really take it in, it is such a peaceful and serene place. You actually start noticing the scents of lavender in the air because you notice there are lavender plants as well. So you walk around really taking in this gorgeous garden. And you notice there's a beautiful rose, a beautiful bright red rose. And you move over to actually touch it. You touch it and you feel the smoothness, the softness of it. And you lean over and you smell the rose. How peaceful and tranquil and at ease you feel. Now, as you continue walking along and really taking in this serene garden, you notice that there's a clearing. You walk towards it to say, what's that around there? What's around that corner? And you can see as you move closer, there's a beautiful lake. A lake that is perfectly still. And it's surrounded by tall, majestic pine trees. And as you continue walking, you can feel the grass and the earth on your feet. And you sense just how grounded and how vast and bountiful and peaceful this place is. You notice there's a bench. And you go over and sit in that bench. It's a comfortable bench. And from here you realize, wow, this is such an amazingly peaceful sanctuary. A place I can come whenever I want. A place that actually exists here inside me. And all I need to do is just call to mind all the things that bring love, joy, peace, and gratitude to myself. So you take a couple moments to really take in what it feels like to be in this place, memorizing it so that you can come back whenever you want to just really feel that sense of serenity and peace. And so you have one last look of what's all around you, the beautiful birds that are chirping. You get up back from the bench, you walk back towards the garden, taking again the beautiful flowers, the different plants, the herbs, the smells. You touch again the rose, and you walk back towards out of the garden, coming back to your body in this present time. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes. You're on mute.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
That was so beautiful and so peaceful.
You're welcome.
So I want to leave us with this peaceful resonance in our spirit. So I want to thank you for this wonderful session. I think you did a wonderful job getting us into a different.
So do
I
I.
feel different. I feel much calmer and peaceful. Your voice actually is very peaceful and calming. So I want to thank everyone for participating. Thank you, Raquel. And if you have any last words you'd like to say to everyone to wrap up, this will be available, particularly the visualization portion. I'll make it available as a smaller clip. But if you have any last things that you'd like to add, now's the time.
Well, no, thank you very much, Milka, and to everyone, thank you so much for joining us. And I certainly wish you a peaceful and joyful and loving, day. So thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you all. I will see you next week. Thank you.
Bye.